Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to MySec Lansing. We're starting now. Sorry. There'll be time to socialize later on, too. My name is Brian Martinez. I'm the new coordinator for Lansing, Michigan. I'm taking over from Jed Knopf, who's here. I appreciate the opportunity, so thank you again, Jed. At the top here, I got a number of announcements that I wanted to talk about, other meetings in other locations, and other things of interest. I got kind of detailed on this, maybe a little ridiculously. So I'll try to just breeze through this as quick as I can. If you have questions about any details, come see me afterwards and we can talk about it. So some of you guys are new here. MySec Lansing, MySec in general, there's chapters all over the state of Michigan. We're a very supportive and inclusive environment. The idea here is to grow your professional network, grow your skills, meet people, and hopefully find a new job, right? That's why you're here today, at least, to talk about breaking into InfoSec. So I'm going to go through some of the MySec meetings elsewhere, which you can find streaming online, or you can watch them afterwards, right? So MySec Jackson, they meet on the second Tuesday of every month. You guys missed that one, I'm sorry. There was a riveting presentation yesterday on Geardra and the NSA's reverse engineering tool. And James, I had your thing on here and I didn't spell it all the way out. What did you present on? I forgot.
6 tools from Carnegie Mellon about building labs.
Tools for building labs. It was good stuff. I watched some of it. MySec Lansing, of course, that's happening right now. That's the second Wednesday of every month. And starting this today is MySec Detroit, also the second Wednesday of every month. Unfortunately, you can't go to that one because you're here. But that, if you guys are interested in that, next month, that will be at the Blue Cross Blue Shield office in Detroit there. There's also MySec Southfield. That meets the second Thursday of every month, and also MySec Grand Rapids. I don't have details on the Southfield talk. No, I'm sorry, I don't have details on the Grand Rapids talk, but Sam Schrum of Southfield is putting on a talk tomorrow about dynamic taint analysis, which is something that allows you to automatically trace data flows through software binaries without reverse engineering. ISC Squared is another InfoSec organization. There's ISC Squared Greater Detroit. They have a meeting coming up Tuesday, April 23rd at the TEKsystems in Southfield. That's from 6 to 8 p.m., topic to be determined. ISC Squared Western Michigan has a meeting Wednesday, May 1st, starting at 5:45 p.m. A gentleman by the name of John Weller will be presenting on developing an InfoSec operational dashboard. Q&A to follow there, and they do want you to RSVP for that event. Again, you can see me for more details if you're interested in that. There's also a number of ISSA chapters. North Oakland ISSA, they typically meet on the second Wednesday of every month. North Oakland ISSA, that is in Auburn Hills. This month, and actually starting tomorrow, they're hosting 2019 DCON Cybersecurity Conference at the Auburn Hills campus of Baker College. The event is tomorrow and Friday. I don't know if you can still get in or not. I imagine you can. Motor City ISSA, that meets the third Thursday of every month. The next meeting is on the 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. They'll be discussing outcome-based risk assessments, and that is held at the Vista Tech Center at Schoolcraft College in Livonia. There is also a Grand Rapids ISSA chapter. I think they're a little momentarily defunct. So if you're interested in Grand Rapids, keep your eyes out on that. And they normally meet on the third Friday of every month. Lansing ISSA, they meet the third Thursday of every month. Their next meeting is April 18th, coming up here, from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at the MSUFC just up the road on Farm Lane, just off of Mount Hope. Details are still TBD. ISACA, that's another InfoSec organization. Western Michigan ISACA, they have a spring seminar coming up, also Thursday, April 18th. That is on the topic of COBIT 2019, the COBIT framework. That's actually an all-day event. You can get 8 CPs for that. If you're an ISACA member, it costs you $300 to get in. If you're not a member, it's $350. ISACA Detroit, their next meeting is their chapter meeting. That's Wednesday, April 17th. That's actually going to be at the MSU Management Education Center in Troy. Dinner will be provided, and there's a pre-dinner topic called Moving Compliance from the Stone Age to the Digital Age by Adam Goslin, and an after-dinner topic, Cybersecurity Strategy an exploration by David Subley. I don't know if there's any costs associated with that. Finally, there's also a DEF CON in Detroit, DEF CON chapter, DEF CON 313. They meet the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of every month. So they're meeting tonight as well. I don't know what they have going on, but they call them Pwn and something like that. Basically, yeah, basically a lot of hacking discussion there. One more announcement. This is more of a reminder for anybody who has signed up. MSU has an interdisciplinary conference on cybercrime. It's a little too late to register now, but that is happening April 15th and 16th here at the University Club from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. There is a MySec social. We have those the fourth Wednesday of every month. We have one coming up here April 24th. We meet at 6 p.m. at Reno's East. So some of you guys are students, if you're interested in that, you can come network further. You might need to catch the bus out there, or maybe you can befriend some of us here, and we'll give you a ride out there too. Converge Detroit is coming up 36 days away. That is May 16th and 17th. Still time to register. $150 for tickets. It's a couple of great days. We got some great.
And if you're a student, there's a discount if you email info@convergeconference.org.
Info@convergeconference.org. If you're a student, you can get a discount.
It's like half off or something.
Half off, $150 maybe. There's also Circle City Con coming up. That's May 31st through June 2nd. That's, what is that, Indiana, right?
Indianapolis.
Okay. Anybody here have any job postings that they want to pitch or anything like that? I know probably TEKsystems has a lot of them.
If you're MSU student, I am looking for some students.
The MSU Information Security Group is looking for students for internships for this summer. You can get, I believe you can get 40 hours of work, right? Yep. Okay. This is actually a coworker of mine. His name is Brad. Another coworker of mine, Jason. You can talk to them afterwards if you have questions about an internship here at MSU. Anybody else? Okay. Anyone have any other announcements or events that you want me to pitch here? Now's the chance. Okay. Become a part of MySec. That's why you're all here. I'd like to see more of you more often. If you have an idea for a topic for a talk, let me know. We can try to find someone to talk about it. If you're interested in talking about it, I'll give you the encouragement you need to actually get up here and stand in front of people and give that talk. Like I said, we're a very inclusive and encouraging, supportive environment. No judgments about your presentation. We will provide constructive criticism if you want it. But the idea here is just to meet people and you know, kind of get past your fears if you have fears of getting in front of people too. If you'd like to give a talk, let me know. Excuse me. We're looking for people as well who are interested in writing about security, so we can put some blog posts on the MySec website, which of course is at mysec.us. Join our Slack if you're not already on Slack. If you go to mysec.us, there's an invite button there. You click it, you get emailed an invite. You'll be on Slack and you can talk to all of us. And lastly, but certainly not least, thank you to our sponsors, TEKsystems at the front here. TEKsystems, they provided the pizza and the pop for us tonight. And before we kick into gear on this panel discussion, I want to provide Michaela and Ben an opportunity to talk. You know, one of you or both of you. So if you want to come up here and talk about what you want to talk about. Here, you want to come over here so you can get on camera. Yep.
Behind the chairs are in the camera.
Okay.
Yay. I'm Michaela. I work with TEKsystems. Ben, who's much taller than me, is on the same team.
Yeah.
No, but we support our infrastructure team, and I came in about 3 years ago to work with Tech to support our cybersecurity space because it's growing and there's a true need. So there's a lot of familiar faces out here, people that we've met through MySec and others of you I may have worked with or support your teams. My goal is really just to help people to network, to find opportunities for career advancement, to support people in their, in their drive to stay in this space. So for some people, we help them with jobs. For others, it's just helping connect them to user groups or help them speak. or just meet the right people, but we're pretty collaborative. We're not scary. And then Ben also came in a little earlier this year, so.
Yeah, coming up on a year in May, so, you probably don't need the microphone, but coming up in here at a year in May. I work closely with Michaela. She's more siloed into security. I'm more so in the infrastructure space, so anything from systems, network security, and a little bit more. So taking advantage of coming to meetings like this, Capital Area ITC, if you guys are familiar with that, and DevOps Meetup, really get to learn who's all in the community and learn more about what I'm talking about each day, because I know that's a big thing. But yeah, just bouncing off what Michaela said, helping with whether that's career advancement or for students, or whether that's resume help. We look at bunch of resumes each day. We work on them all the time directly with hiring managers, so we get really good feedback. So just really looking to be a resource. So I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, so if you guys ever want to talk or you are looking for the students, maybe you don't know what's here. I know when I was a student, I didn't know anything outside of Grand Rapids. That's where I grew up, and I had no idea what else was around the state. So we can help with that. Also just helping introduce you to the right people. But enjoy the pizza. And if you guys want different food, just let me know too. For next month, I can, as long as I have a couple of days notice, we can adjust. Okay? Cool. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much. So if our panelists will come grab a seat. While they're doing that, I do want to mention something I forgot. Oh, sorry, you come here. Sorry. Something else I forgot, which is this is a new location for us this month. This is actually only temporary. We're not going to be in this room next month or for the next year. We're actually going to be upstairs in room 2400. I'll post about that on Twitter so everyone is aware. But it will be in the engineering building for the next year or so until we decide we want to try a new location here on campus. That being said, I'm going to introduce our panelists. If your phones are on audio, please put them on vibrate. I am going to encourage active participation, so if you have questions, please raise your hand, and once whoever is speaking is done speaking, we'll call on you and you can ask a question. Otherwise, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of all of this here. So I am not going to start with myself because I've been talking this whole time. So I'm going to start down at the end of the row. This is Melissa Terwilliger. She is the SOC manager, that's Security Operations Center manager for Jackson. And if you would like to give a little bit of background about yourself, your history with InfoSec, whatever you want to do. You got about 5 to 10 minutes or so. Use your mic there. We're at the pass mics, I'm sorry.
We'll have to pass the mic around.
Yeah.
I came into InfoSec from IT. I've been working in IT since the late 90s. I was a Unix system administrator for close to 20 years. Basically, I got into information security because I was working at the Space Physics Research Lab at U of M. And after 9/11, the security controls on anything that was ITAR related were really tightened up. So we had to go from being IT people to security people. And as part of that, because we had to figure it all out, and we had to figure it out quick, we began reviewing contracts, writing requirements, building the architecture out, firewalls, the whole thing. We had to get up to speed super quick. We only had a couple of months to meet the requirements. And so then I was doing combination of InfoSec and IT. I actually came to Jackson as a Unix administrator. Did that for a couple of years, and a couple of people in information security kept asking me to come over to their team, and I finally said yes. So.
So next up we have James Green. I'm sorry, was that on? It is now. So next up we have James Green. He works information security and development for Offensive Security. And please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. So yeah, I've been developing and working with security for about 5 years now when I started. Graduated here from State in 2016. Was a student web developer here with Matrix. Had an internship with Vertifor up on Abbott, so another local company. Did application security with Jose, and then went to Offensive Security, and now work with them, building labs, helping with Cali, and doing fun stuff like that. So yeah, newer to the field, but just here to show like how you can kind of go straight from college into running full speed. So yeah.
Next up here we have Kyle Andrus. He is the Senior Digital Forensic and Incident Responder at Consumers Energy. Please tell us about yourself, Kyle.
I got my start, let's see. So, that's the best way to put it. So when I graduated, my first job was actually more in web support. So I was basically fixing people's websites. And then I got a random call where basically I got to get my first entry job, which was a third-level support supporting Windows systems at Consumers Energy. I did that for 3 years, and when I first came in, I didn't know how to use Windows, because at that point I was a Linux guy. So that was a lot of fun to learn, and I got really good at like fixing and finding weird bugs in like Windows applications, servers, desktops, laptops, and all of those skills built up really well into forensics. And so as we started building out our forensics capabilities at Consumers Energy, I got tagged to basically jump into that team. So I've been doing that for about the last 6 years. So I've kind of touched everything from reverse engineering, disk-based forensics, memory forensics, and recently it's been more of a focus on threat hunting. So like, how do you build detections to detect the things that are undetectable? It's a lot of fun.
All right. I already introduced myself, but once again, I'm Brian Martinez. I work on the governance, risk, and compliance team here at MSU for the information security team. I've been doing this for a little over 2 years. Prior to doing GRC, I was an IT auditor for our internal audit department. I also did that for about 2 years. A lot of my focus here is on risk. GRC really kind of speaks to my academic background, which is somewhat journalism and somewhat telecommunication. What I studied here in telecommunication was a lot of information policy. GRC has a lot to do with developing and drafting policy, and of course, kind of spelling out what controls are necessary to protect your systems, to provide information assurance, right? I've been here ultimately for 21 years, 22 years. I started here in, gosh, what was it, 97. So yeah, 22 years. I used to be a system administrator. I did Windows system administration. I did Unix system administration. That was a lot of fun. That's actually what I enjoyed the most. But security is what I do now. And if you have any other questions about my work, I'm happy to talk about that. But I'm going to try to not do a lot of talking here and play the role of moderator. But I will probably chime in as I see fit. I have a list of questions that I provided these guys very last minute. Extremely last minute, so they're not necessarily well prepared for these. But that being said, is this? I see a red light. Okay. So we're not going to go through all these questions with every single person. Since we kind of have to pass the mic, I think what I'm going to do is maybe just ask one of these questions, and if someone wants to dive in and go for it, feel free to. Just grab the mic. I'll start with transitioning from other disciplines to information security. Are there any do's or don'ts, or is there like a right way or a wrong way to get into information security? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Sure. There's nothing wrong, ever. Like, everyone drops into information security in different ways. I came from an IT background. I've seen people that went from accounting to security. I've seen people that have had no experience at all, even touching technology, start jumping into different aspects. And a lot of that is because, like, InfoSec in general is huge, right? It's not all just hacking technical stuff. You've got policy making, you've got strategy. So, I mean, it's a huge and broad field. So you really can just jump in anywhere to start. You just got to get that kind of that interest, start picking on your own. Yeah. So what about you guys?
Okay. It's not much of a jump, but again, so going from developer to security, I guess the first way I kind of jumped into that was while making websites, just doing tickets for making new features. We got hacked by someone that just ended up dumping our whole database of users. So here's everyone's emails, here's everyone's passwords. And as a student, I'm like, oh crap, this is probably something one of the kids did. And like, what did we do wrong? How can we save our butts? So that was kind of my first taste of security, where we have to figure out like what SQL injection is, how to fix that, how to prevent it. And so just like as the issues came up, I guess that's how I got into it. So I guess just like start researching kind of what security things are and how you can apply it to your current job role if you have one. And then from there you can kind of start transitioning over. Yeah.
I'll just agree too that there's no wrong way to get into it. I have music majors working for me. One of my best friends who's in information security was a chemistry major. I'm a zoology major. So it's sometimes you fall into things because that's where your interest lies. And so there is no right way to do that.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing to think about is if you're going to go for like a technical role as well, some good things to start getting in your head is getting your basic like IT stuff down, because the foundation of InfoSec is basically an advanced discipline built on top of your basic networking, your basic OS, your basic applications, how they run, why they run. So the more experience you get on that, the better and the easier it's going to be for you transitioning into like an InfoSec role if you want to do something more on the technical side. So.
Okay. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Following from your comment, what would you recommend, like to start like in security from the very beginning, or to start in an IT discipline and get some expertise there and then jump to security?
It's a hard question to say like do one or the other, because there's so many blended roles. Many times an employer is just looking for someone who's got that interest or that spark that wants to learn this type of role. And so they'll pay for your education and they'll pay for your training to get in there and start doing the basics. Yeah, we've got other topics on certifications, which kind of helps. Yeah, I know I'm like, yeah, if that helps.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I can wait for the certification help desk.
Yeah.
Help desk is an awesome way to get started in learning your base OS, whether it be Linux or Windows.
Yep, that's true. And from our audience, they're talking about just like even simple IT help desk roles are awesome because they really build on that fundamental, like that foundation, I should say, that you're going to build on top of if you go into InfoSec and you're leaning more technical or more of the hands-on stuff.
So I do just want to add, there's actually someone who used to come to the Lansing chapter occasionally. I think he goes to Jackson quite often. Benjamin Carroll, Taco Pirate on Twitter, everybody, or on Slack. He actually gave a talk at the first Lansing, the first MySec Lansing meeting about getting started in information security, and it really kind of resonated with me because what he was trying to say was there is no traditional way to get into security. In IT, generally, if you become a system administrator, you probably start at the help desk, and maybe you work your way into desktop support. Then maybe you kind of work your way into server support, and then you're a sysadmin, right? Or maybe you're working at the help desk, and there's a lot of processes that are going wrong, and you're interested in programming, and you start like, hey, I'm coming up with new ways to make things efficient here, and you start programming that way. In security, there's so many different disciplines. There's something, if you're interested, there's something called the Map of Cybersecurity Domains, and it is just this gigantic chart of so many different disciplines. You've got reverse engineering, you've got policy development, you've got operational support, firewalls, load balancing, all those types of things. There's just so many areas in InfoSec that if you're already doing IT, you can branch into, but even if you're not doing IT, it's something you can branch into. And the help desk is a good entry point, but it's not necessarily the entry point, right? So since we already had a question kind of come up on this, and you mentioned it, we'll just move to that next. Certifications. What do you guys think? Are they a must or not?
I'll start with this one. So I got my first certification last year. So I guess, so I wasn't really all that interested, and then was highly recommended that I do it, and highly recommended that I do it, and finally they put it on my goals for the year, so I couldn't get out of it. I think the experience was worth it. I got some good information. I got letters after my name now, and it does seem to mean a lot. I mean, a lot of people, they look for that, and when we hire, there are certain certifications we like to see because we know where people come in at, and especially in information security, we don't always get people with information security degrees. So, and we don't always get people applying for jobs that have even gone to college. We've had people that we've hired right out of high school, but they've gone and they've gotten a few certifications, and it helps me know that they at least understand these concepts because they have that certification. Am I going to not hire someone because they don't have a certification? No. I mean, if they check my boxes of what I'm looking for, they have that drive, they have that interest, that's really what I care about. But it can help me make sure that when I see your resume, I know that you understand these concepts, and I'm not starting from the ground up to teach you, the very basics.
I should probably just throw in here that I think I'm obligated to say yes, certificates are required, just from my employer, at least if you're doing pen testing. But really, it's more of showing that you have the willingness to go out and learn. You're looking for ways of learning what you want to do. So even if you don't get the cert the first time around, if you're doing the course, you can show that you've learned something from it. That means a lot. So again, it's just showing that you're willing to put the effort in beforehand. So that's good. Yeah, but I guess, you don't really need a cert to get a job. Just learn something and make the effort to go for what you want. So.
Yeah, they're definitely not required by any means. But sometimes when you're starting out, it can be a really easy way to put something on your resume, right? And an easy win for you to kind of show those core skills that you may have. CompTIA's classes and their certs are cheap. So, I mean, if you want to be able to put something easily on your resume, you can do those A+ certifications for IT stuff. You can do Net Plus. You can do Security Plus. They even have like cloud security now, and a variety of those. And because the price point's so low, and if you're trying to build up and get that first job, those are great certs to go after. For more of the advanced stuff that I know a lot of employers will really go after if they see that on your resume, like if you've heard of SANS training. Whenever you hear SANS training, also just remember like a lot of money, because unfortunately it's about $6 to $8 grand for a 6-day course, and I'd say it's a little over what I think the courses actually cost like $6 grand. But when you factor in the hotel room and the food for you to be there, they're really expensive. But they're great classes and courses, because they just cram like every single tool you can kind of think of that are, if you're going for like a basic Windows forensics course, they have one, and it's 6 days of just a fire hose, and you're just trying to take notes as fast as you can and remember every single one of these details. And so by day 3, usually your brain is just toast, and you're just kind of like lying there on the desk. But they're great courses to go after. The offensive security one for pen testing, actually the price point's not crazy like SANS.
It's only $800.
Yeah, it's $800. So, and that course takes a lot of studying and a lot of patience to master it. But that's another really big one. But I would say don't approach the offensive security stuff until you've had a little bit of time touching the tools, looking at it, understanding what's going on, because those are pretty advanced certs. I think, is there any other, like, anybody in the audience have other certs that they've known that are a decent price point?
If you're doing network stuff, some of the entry Cisco stuff's not too bad.
Oh, that's right. For
and they have a couple different variations.
Yeah, that's right. The Cisco training, the CCNA, are not too bad either, and those are great for your networking skills. Anybody else? E-Learn Security. I haven't heard of them, but if they're teaching you something, then and again, that's something easy to show that you're interested in, actually you want to do this field, especially for resume building.
Correct. You can do a lot of self-study for most certifications. That's correct. Yep. Right. You do have to pay for the exam. Yep. And also you have to apply, if you want the actual certification, not just passing the test, you do have to apply for the certification itself, which also has a cost associated with it, usually $25-50, something like that. But shameless self-promotion, I did have a talk on certs or nah. Ultimately, the lesson is just keep learning, right? You don't necessarily need certs, but they're not a bad thing, and especially if you can get an employer to pay for it for you, that's also a huge plus. But you can find that online on our YouTube channel. Kind of building off of the cert discussion, what do you guys think are some good resources for people who want to dive deeper into information security? Either in one particular area or in general. I would also I would just start with InfoSec Twitter is phenomenal. Just Google InfoSec Twitter and you'll find a whole list of people that you can follow and learn from. But please go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm just going to start off and say that like coming to MySec and learning from the people talking and then going to conferences, even if it's an expensive conference, you can always volunteer. Just doing that and networking with people, probably the best way to get connections and learn. So yeah, the face-to-face time is probably the best way to learn. As far as other resources, the stuff that I've played with, OWASP has a lot of great tools for doing like web app security testing. So figuring out about the top 10 vulnerabilities on a website. Over the wire, if you want to learn like the basics of Linux. I'm drawing a blank on more that I had. What was that? Yeah, Hack the Box is a good one. So again, it's like VulnHub, but it's just a bunch of hosted challenges that you can use for pen testing practice. Yeah.
And plugging, you gave a talk on the Juice Shop.
Yeah, yep, another one from OWASP is the Juice Shop as well. So that's another website that's hosted that you can again practice the top 10 website vulnerabilities. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess. Doesn't matter, yeah. Yeah, it's Mike's. Here we go. Yeah, again, there's a lot of things that you'll hear CTF or capture the flag, and those are just like puzzles, right? And there's a lot of kind of red team pen testing ones out there, but there's also a lot of blue team ones where they do forensics. That'll touch everything from disk to memory to even reverse engineering a piece of malware in there as well, right? There's a lot that are out there that you can go after. SANS has their Holiday Hack Challenge, which has a variety of levels of puzzles in there that you can actually go after. And the great thing about them is they always expose you to something new. And at the end of the day, usually the competition winds down and people do write-ups and they describe how they solved each one of these puzzles. So it's great when you sit down, try and do it, you struggle and you can't get it done, and then this thing ends, and then you read like, oh, that's how they did it. And like just little light bulbs will go off in your head. And the next time that you do a CTF like that, you're going to be like, oh, I remember this because so it's building on top of that. So they're great for exposure and kind of like touching and it might spark your interest to start digging into one of these tools and see what else it can do. Yeah, there is a lot of open source tools out there as well, whether you're going to do pen testing or defense stuff. So on GitHub, there's a lot of projects that you can go. You can download them, and you can actually just read the code if you want to go. If you're more of a developer type and you want to get your hands dirty, it's a great way to really start playing with those tools that are out there. I love Twitter. For me, I do a lot of threat hunting with Twitter, and so because there's a lot of stuff happens in the world on a regular basis, and there's a lot of security researchers who are out playing around with stuff, and then they're writing their own blog posts, and then they're posting on Twitter, hey, check out my new tool I just did. So I actually follow a lot of security researchers, and when they drop their new tools, I'll download that tool, take a look at it, I'll run a sample in my environment, and I'll be like, okay, so how can I detect this? So you could say, yeah, here's the hash value of that tool, and I can use that, but I changed a simple line in there, now the hash is gone, right? So I'm like, okay, so how can I do that behavioral? And like those wheels start churning, and it's just all because I was listening to somebody on Twitter. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but definitely worth your time.
I don't really have anything to add to that.
So we'll be coming up shortly here on a break for at least Q&A. If no one has any other questions, I can keep going through our list here too. But before we get to that point, I do want to ask at least one more question here. Technical proficiency versus emotional, political, social awareness. What's the importance of both? What are the uses for both? Do you have any context through your experiences? I guess this kind of speaks a little bit to soft skills versus technical skills and whatnot. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Soft skills are incredibly important, especially if you're doing incident response or you're in these very stressful, even a pen tester, right? You can imagine that you drop into a new environment, you have no idea what they're using, and they're like, in 1 week, we need you to be the admin of everything. And you're like, okay. A lot of stress, a time crunch, if you're next to people and you get easily annoyed or you don't know how to control, I don't want to say control your emotions, that's not the correct term for it. One term that's been coming out in the industry more and more is they call it emotional IQ. So it's how well you're able to understand when you're sitting next to someone. If they're angry at you, you understand like they're angry because we've been in this room for 3 hours straight and no one brought us food. And it's not because like something I'm doing, or letting some of those emotions play out where you're like, okay, wait, this is just because of what's going on and it's not the person. Especially in IR when things are on fire and everything's burning down, it can get, that stress can change people very quickly. So that's, there's actually I think there's a book called Emotional IQ that's a great read to go through, and it kind of goes over some of those concepts and ways to approach them. It's, yeah, very, very helpful in the workplace.
One more thing I want to say from that is with the soft skills, from people I've heard that are hiring people, it's better to have soft skills and be able to explain and communicate well than it is to be super technical but just clam up all the time. So if you know everything that you can do, if you're like a wizard with Linux, but you just don't talk, you just like to sit at your keyboard, it's going to be really hard to show people your skills or work with a team. So having the soft skills, or at least building soft skills, are really important as well. Yeah, and I guess it's just more important to be having that willingness to learn. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the best pen tester to get into pen testing. But again, just being able to communicate and have the, like, knowing when to say, I don't know that, I can get back to you, or just, again, sharing your point. I guess that's the important part.
I think there's a couple of soft skills that tend to get ignored by people in IT or InfoSec, and one of them is the ability to write, to document, to be able to make a coherent email. A lot of people just think they need to be good at their job, but at any point you may need to write a report for your CISO. And if you can't do basic grammar, spelling, if what you write is not comprehensible, you're never going to be put in that position. And we have actually added a written portion to our interview process because we've had that happen a number of times where we're like, well, I'm concerned if this person's on shift and they need to send a message out to our CISO or, you know, even higher, that they're not going to be able to write something coherent. And I think that gets overlooked quite a bit, where people think, I just need to be super good at my job, I just need to have these great technical skills. But you also need to be able to, you know, explain things to somebody. You know, we tell them to write at a 5th grade level, and it's not because our higher-ups are dumb or anything like that. It's just the fact that there's a lot of concepts, there's a lot of that gets covered, and you need to be able to get that point across. So that's one of the ones that I think gets missed a lot. And I've been really kind of surprised as when I started hiring that the number of people that didn't have the ability to write an email. So that was kind of shocking. The other one with the emotional IQ, that is so important because especially in a SOC environment, things get crazy, they get stressed, everything's on fire. We joke that the fire's on fire. And people need to be able to read each other, and you know, that joking that you normally do, it's not going to work right now because everybody's super stressed, or sometimes the opposite. Everyone is super stressed. You know, you need to be able to, you know, lighten the mood. And it's one of the things that I'm always like really happy for my level 2s because they're really good at reading the people around them and deciding that this person is about to have a meltdown. You know, and maybe it's not like a meltdown where, you know, they throw their keyboard, but enough that they're going to be frustrated. And sometimes that's a matter of just taking them out to play a game of ping pong, or, you know, getting a little bit of a break. And that's so important to have a healthy SOC or have a healthy working environment, to be able to see what is happening with the people around you and just see how they're handling the events that are going on.
I'm going to add a little bit more to this. Actually, something from Slack earlier today from a gentleman named Sludge. He is our resident thought leader on our Slack channel. What he said, though, it was striking, and I think it's really kind of true. And there's a little bit of foul language in here, but we're all adults, so I think we can handle it. Except for those little hackers over there, I guess. but they've heard it before too. So, so what he said, and this is a quote. My biggest thing with candidates is they can demonstrate the ability to learn and reason through things. Security isn't special. Security isn't comprised of skills and knowledge that. I'm sorry. Security is comprised of skills and knowledge that anyone can learn. If someone has a proclivity in InfoSec and can prove that they can learn, that's worth more than someone who's a dick, but can do the job right out of the gate. And to me, that kind of speaks to these soft skills here, right? I would say in my job in governance, risk, and compliance, I'd say probably 80% of what I do is soft skills, right? Being able to document things, being able to communicate effectively. I'm actually going to try to call out some of you guys in the audience here that I know do operational kind of work, but I know soft skills are important for you too, but I don't know like what you would say, like maybe 50% technical, 50% soft skills, or 60-40, something like that. Anybody want to? Yeah.
I'll just say is you come into security, you think you're going to be doing security work, and then you find out almost all of the people who actually have their fingers on the controls that you need to secure, you need to get their buy-in.
Right.
Then turn on the security. So if you can't get their buy-in and you can't get them to work with you,
yeah,
and you just yell at them, say, do the thing,
right,
you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah. So what was said in the audience, since there's not a mic out there, I'm sorry, I'll try to repeat it as best I can. Basically, you come to security and you think you're going to be doing security, but really there's people who kind of control the systems above you who you're trying to secure their systems, and what you need is their buy-in, and you're not going to get their buy-in if you know, as Sludge says, you're a dick to them, right? Like you need to be able to communicate effectively why what you're trying to do is important and why it's necessary for the organization, for the mission of the business, right? So I do have another question that can tie into this, but I'm going to take a break and open it up here for a Q&A. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask, now's the time. Otherwise, we can go through a few more questions here too. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do that. Let's have you come up and actually talk to the mics every night. Okay. Sorry. No, people on the internet, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. I'll try to go back here behind on the camera, sorry. My name is Alex. I've been in IT almost 20 years. Something I've seen a lot is people don't have a willingness to say, I'm wrong. Being able to admit failure is one of the biggest things I've seen. I've worked with a lot of new people over the years, and they feel like they have something to prove. Don't. If you're right out of college, I know a good number of the classroom looks fairly young. Don't be afraid to stop talking and let someone who's been in the field a long time talk to you and tell you how to do something. You know, so that's the big thing is, you know, don't be afraid to tell them I don't know what I'm doing.
I would also add, don't be afraid as a veteran, right? Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to listen to young folks either. So
certainly.
Yeah. Is that on? Okay. So I just said, sorry. I just said, building on that, right? As a veteran in the field, don't be afraid to listen to young folks either, because they might have a different perspective on things. It's not always right, but it's not always wrong either. So don't be afraid to listen to that. Sorry. If you have more, go ahead.
Oh no, that.
I did have a question from the internet, and it was around, so when you're starting to learn a new technology or a new topic, how do you take notes? Or how do you record your progress and what you're doing?
That's very good.
Do you have anything to use? What's your secret sauce?
When I'm learning something new, how do I take notes? You know, as I'm learning a new technology, so I've not been a technical person for about 5 years now, so I'm way out of practice on system administration or shell scripts or anything like that. But even then, when I was doing those types of things, really it's just a lot of trial and error, right? So if I'm trying to come up with a script because I want a program to do something else, or I want a series of programs to do some tasks, I'm just going to keep running through this in like a test environment, right? Until I get it right and I get the output that I want. I might not be working with real inputs either, though, right? It might be something fake. But really just trial and error, just trying things over and over again. That's my process. I don't really have like a note-taking system unless I have to document a process, which is something that we do in GRC. You know, we definitely want to document everything. That's really our mantra. Document everything and trust but verify. So, yeah, like I said, unless I'm running through a process, I'm gonna spell out every single step at the barest level, because I want someone to be able to come in after me and do the thing, right? Whatever the process is. That's all I got.
Thank you. All right. So to add on to just doing it and being able to do it a couple times, understanding it. I guess to go a step further is being able to teach it. So yeah, writing about it and storing it is good, but you really know something when you can teach it to someone else. A good way to do that is come up here, give a talk about it in MySec. Yeah, got that one. Going off another MySec talk from Southfield, one of the members, Ali, is going through the SANS masterclass right now. He actually has a really good method of indexing all of his training material. So in one SANS class, you have like 5 or 6 books per class. And to go through all that material, your head would explode if you read it cover to cover. So a lot of what he does is takes like Microsoft OneNote or Cherry Tree or some kind of document to build a list of like keywords to where it is in the book, so we can go back and reference it. So building an index table, if you're doing any kind of reading material, is generally a good thing. So, and that's all I got.
I'll go completely sideways from everybody else because I've been a system admin forever. I like text files. I use VI, and I have a folder filled with, and when I take notes, it's core concepts. It's what I found important. It's what I didn't know. And what I like about that is it doesn't matter if it's a note that I took 20 years ago. I can still read it without a problem. And even better is I can grep it, which is super important for me because I'll be like, I remember the thing. I don't even remember what year the thing happened, but I remember the thing and I had a really good note on it. Where's the rest of that document? And I can just take that keyword, and I don't care how many thousands of documents I've got in this folder, I can find it quickly. And then I can say, oh yeah, this is what it was about. But I know that doesn't work for everybody. I mean, a lot of people need a little more structure, but I'm really good at remembering like a couple of keywords, which help me search, but to go back and be like, oh yes, this is what the talk I saw at GERCon, and it was this person who talked about this thing. I'm not going to do it. That's just not how my brain works. So I think you really have to tailor your note-taking to how your brain works.
Yeah, for my note-taking, I go back and forth between paper and electronic. So when I'm at work, I actually use Microsoft OneNote. So I'll build out like different tabs for all the different stuff that I'm working on. And I constantly have to make sure that I'm keeping it up to date as I'm thinking, because if I don't, I get distracted, something else comes up, and then I have no idea where I left off, and I redo the same research I just did again. That happens a lot when you're busy. Another thing is like when I'm learning something new, especially if I'm doing like tests or anything along those lines, I actually have to find a new location. Because my computer at home and that office, I do a lot of like gaming and fun stuff on. And so if I need to get really serious for a couple of hours, I can get distracted easily in that room. So mentally, if I go somewhere else, like a Starbucks or a library, it gives me that focus time that I can actually focus on the material that I want. I also like make sure I don't log into any other distracting stuff. I turn my phone off. That's what I have to do to like get that focus to actually learn the stuff. And yeah, I still use flashcards too when needed. Like, it's great, especially because today, like on your phone, there's a lot of flashcard apps. So then when you're bored or somewhere and you got nothing to do, you can just like flip through and just go through topics and remember their definitions, things like that. And of course, always build it. You build it whenever you build something from the ground up with your own hands, you tend to remember it and it sticks in there. So, but remember to document it. Whether it's in paper form or if it's in electronic form, because documentation is probably the most important thing that you can do for any team that you get into. Because if you disappear, all your work disappears with you many times. So it helps the team, everyone else in the team, as well as yourself, remember all this stuff. So.
To put a exclamation point on that, the documentation thing, there was a quote that I got off of Twitter a long time ago, and I used to have it up on our board at work, which said, documentation is a love letter that you write to yourself in the future. So document everything. I did get a question directly from the internet in a direct message here. Do you tie in your hobbies to your job? So for example, do you take some free time to learn something new, or working on a personal project and go, this would work really nice in the field?
Yes. So like my own home lab right now, I'm rebuilding so that I can have kind of a mobile workshop lab, so I can drop it off into any location that I go to. So I just rebuilt like my entire like Wi-Fi and made basically a portable version I can take wherever I want to go, and try and support like 100 people. And then right now my big project is starting to learn Elastic. Elastic is kind of like a database and a log SIM, if you will. Not familiar with a SIM or ever heard that term. It's basically a server whose sole purpose is to take all the events from every single workstation, laptop, or like servers, workstations, firewalls, switches, everything that sends alerts or has events. You can send it to a single location, and then from that that box, you can basically query, and you can start to do some of this behavioral stuff, right? So if you want to be like, hey, whenever this process executes on this box and makes a network connection out, you could have this box, you could write that rule, and then get alerted on it. And so I currently use that in a different format at work, and so now my personal project is learning this new style using Elastic and then going from there.
So sidestepping from doing a home lab and doing stuff on your free time, like in the evenings, when I was starting out, if you're not really at a company that supports like security training, sometimes you have to take PTO to go to conferences. At least that's what I did starting out. So I remember when I had my student job, I used to work Fridays because I didn't have class. I actually had to like skip one of my English classes Thursday, so I just didn't go to school, and then I didn't go to work Thursday, so I could go to my first conference and volunteer there. And making the connections in person, that's actually how I found out about MySec, was just knowing the right people and going through there. So sometimes you just have to, like, again, take the time to go to the conferences, do the things that sound interesting to you.
I think part of what I like to do for, my hobby as an IT person or InfoSec is I like to take it and apply it to my daily life. And I think it really helps if you have a real goal for what you're trying to learn, where you're not just sitting down and learning this programming language because, you think it's going to help your career. Figure out what sort of thing helps you out at home that you can do with it. So, like, an example is, my husband loves magic cards and, has played for years, and he has a massive collection. Well, we build our own database to keep track of it, just for fun. And so we learned a lot of skills that we wouldn't have gotten, just, I'm going to sit down and read this book and learn how to do this thing. We took that knowledge, and because we applied it to something, it made it way more fun. And it made it more applicable, and it made it more interesting, and I think we got way more out of it than we would have if we hadn't tried to apply it to a real-world situation.
Yeah.
Well, a question here, like, that is related to the topic. Well, a question related to the topic is like, around how many hours do you guys spend in security field out of your job? Let's say per week or something like that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great if you can give a number.
Yeah. So right now it's probably easiest for me to answer that because outside of work I'm actually doing one of the courses we offer for the pen testing with Callie. So when I get done for work, I actually spend most of my evenings doing that. So I'm spending 3 to 4 hours a night doing that. So like 20 hours a week, I think. So yeah, this is just because it's my it's not my first time trying to take the course, and I'm really buckling down doing that. So I don't know if anyone else can put it into numbers, but.
All right. So I try to spend as little time as possible in security outside of work. But I mean, I definitely do, especially now doing the coordination for Lansing here, getting things ready. Even preparing for the stuff, I consider that it's security work, right? Like maybe it's all administrative, but my focus is on security, right? And getting people lined up to talk here and whatnot. I think this kind of plays into the question that was just asked. I would say for the young folks in the room, and I don't mean this like disparagingly as a parent, but once you get married or you have kids, one or both, you don't. My kids are waving to me. My kids are here, by the way. it becomes a lot harder to do things in your free time, right? Your free time is going to be focused on your kids mostly, or maybe not. I mean, maybe you're not that kind of parent, but that's the kind of parent that I am. But I can think back to when I was in my early 20s. You know, I wasn't doing security stuff, but I was trying to learn web design and Photoshop and Flash and things like that. And I did probably spend 20 extra hours outside of work or outside of school just doing those things, right? And that's really how I started to get into technology. And so, you know, if my interest had been more in security then, I probably would have been trying to build virtual labs and things like that in my free time. So take advantage of that when you're young, definitely. If you have that opportunity to do it when you're older and you know, with children, you know, that's great too. I think you should definitely take advantage of that. Hopefully you have someone who supports you in doing that. My wife supports me doing this, right? This is extra time for me, and my kids support me as well. They just gave me the thumbs up now. But yeah, so that's, like I said, I try to avoid security, but yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, and I should clarify. So the stuff that I'm doing on my free time, it's hands-on stuff in the lab. It's playing with projects. It's things that I find fun. It's not like I'm coming home from work and just cramming stuff from a book and like torturing myself. So if I wasn't as interested in it, I probably wouldn't be spending as much time doing it. So follow your passions. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think on average, I'm probably doing about 5 a week, but I spike up to like 30, either between stuff I'm doing for MySec or when I'm helping organize Converge conference. So I fly all over the place, and plus I accidentally let myself get pulled into random projects with people because it's fun, right? You have no idea what's going on. You're like, sure, I'll do that. Why not? That why not gets you in trouble, but it's fun because I always learn something. But yeah.
Probably the amount of time that I spend outside of work is inversely proportional to what the weather's like. So when it's nice, I try to spend the least amount of time as I can. But luckily the weather, or unluckily the weather in Michigan's terrible most of the year. So, you know, winter months, rainy days, rainy weekends, you know, those are all time that, you know, those are when I'm looking at white papers or whatever is piquing my interest at that time. But if it's sunny and nice, then there's not a lot of time outside of work that I'm going to be looking at InfoSec stuff.
Yeah, I want to relate to that. Is like those extra hours are work related or no? Well, for what I see, most of the times it's not work related.
So
I mean, I'm not talking about like doing my job in my home. No,
Right.
but something like, oh, I am working about in this in my job. So in my home, I want to dig deeper so I can be more successful in my job. Or if it's something like, oh, I hear this on school. So
Right. So the question was, these extra hours that you spend, are they work related or not? And even if they're not, is it something that you can tie into your job later? You know, I would say the extra hours that I do spend that aren't MySec related outside of work would ultimately be work related. You know, maybe not right then and there that I'm, you know, reading into something or studying something. But whatever concepts I take out of that, I am going to bring back to work. I might be like, hey guys, I was reading this thing the other night talking about risk management, and maybe we should try doing this, right? So for me, it would generally be work related, at least at some point in the future.
Yeah, it might not be something I could tie into work like next week, but it's definitely something that would be useful in a career path down the road. So.
Just one other note on that too. Another user from the internet, Gondrith, wanted to mention as well that tied to like the hobby question in general, even just building a game server can give you a lot of experience. It's worth it, right? Because you have to learn how to port forward, you know, set up a backend stuff, how to manage the server itself, and then people start to attack the server. You learn how to defend it too. Probably if you've got really mean friends that want to take down your gaming server in the middle of a tournament or something. But just want to mention that.
I'll say a lot of what I've done on my personal time, I didn't intend to be something to use at work, and then it ends up being that way. I read a white paper 2 years ago, and didn't think it had anything to do that was going to apply to what I was doing or what we would need. And now just recently, the concepts, the information that was in that white paper, we've used quite a bit in the last couple of weeks because it's really applied. And I had no idea. I was just like, oh, this is a pretty neat paper. There's really interesting information in here I've never seen. And now just happens to be something that's useful.
All right, so we're at 8 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry, there is a question. Go ahead.
So, a few years ago, I'd hear the word cybersecurity, and immediately my mind would be like, oh, computer science or programming. As evidenced by the discussion tonight, that's not necessarily the case. What would you guys say is an adequate level of knowledge with respect to programming languages?
So the question was, what is an adequate level of, I'm sorry, repeat it one more time. Programming experience. Okay.
I can try to take a crack at that. So again, I graduated with a minor in computer science. So all I learned in college was here's the basics of programming. So can't say I do a lot of that except for like stuff that would go into web development. So a lot of like I guess web programming skills. But if you try to go into like pen testing or forensics, it might come up where you're like scripting something. So like knowing Bash would be good. But a lot of the time you're doing best practices or rules that like knowing how to program and understanding logic is good, but you're not really writing code day to day. It depends on what you do. Again, cybersecurity is such like a big field of possible jobs that it's kind of hard to say, this one guy is never going to code or this guy is always going to code. So it's a hard one to answer. But,
yeah, and what's interesting is you can start InfoSec and do absolutely no programming, and then you're going to learn all these tools that you're using, and then you're going to realize that you get really tired of clicking the same thing, and you just want to automate your job. And that's usually how people start learning, like through scripting languages and things like that. And I personally say try and start programming as soon as you can. Script your own work or play around with just simple programs. There's tons of websites that will teach you any language you want. Python is a great language to jump in and start learning, especially because a lot of security tools are written in Python. PowerShell is my personal favorite, mostly because I work in a large Windows environment, and I like to automate my job as much as possible. So anytime I have to do with Excel, which by the way, Excel still runs the world, no matter what people tell you, everyone still uses Excel. I can't tell you how many macros we have to allow in our environment because people have mission critical things running out of Excel still. So yeah, I've learned, like in my job at Consumers, I have learned several languages on the fly. And prior to them, I did no programming. So I learned RecScript, which no one's probably heard of because it's an IBM mainframe scripting language. And then I converted those scripts to VBScript and then tried my hand at C for a little while for a couple of items. So it really depends on like the job you're in and what falls in your lap, what you might try and learn. So yeah.
All the programming languages, I always love to see Python, PowerShell, Bash, but honestly the biggest thing I like to see is that you have the ability that if I throw gigs of data at you in text files, that you can work with it. And it really, those skills seem to carry over no matter where you end up, that at some point you're going to have a lot of data, whether you're in governance, whether you're in audit, no matter what area you're going to end up, and you're going to have to make something out of it. And being able to do that with a simple scripting language, even if you're just going to use awk to break it up, that can really make your life easier. So that is something we push for. We try to get, we've put together our own Python training courses so that we can teach people who've never used it, because at some point they're going to need it. We've got a PowerShell course we're developing for in-house, just because, you can't go wrong with it,
I saw that there was one more question, but I do want to take a quick crack at your programming question. I will lead with I am not a programmer, and I never have been. If you actually two things. If you get on our Slack instance, there is a programming channel where there's a couple of guys who are quite active, and a few others who are just they chime in now and again with some thoughts and some advice. And they're all working on personal projects, right? Things that they think are going to be fun. Some of it is probably work related too. I don't pay that close attention because it doesn't all make sense to me. Like I said, I'm not a programmer. but there is a lot going on there, and they use Golang, I think, is their big one. Python too. But I did have a chance to work closely with some application security folks on my team here, and what I would say is, you know, I kind of helped support the vulnerability management, the application, what am I trying to say? The code analysis. So we would ingest code from groups around campus, and through a particular product, and it would tell us, you know, there's overflows here, or this is, you know, data leakage here, and you need to be able to fix these things. And it didn't make sense to me, but I could tell you that the application security team was able to kind of delve into those, and a lot of times that code came from people that developed it a long time ago, so the people supporting it now really don't understand it. So it really helps to have that background in programming, because then as an AppSec person, you can say, well, this is what you should do to fix this. And then you can run it through the code analysis again and see what happens. Is this related to code analysis? Oh, hold on, there's one behind you. There's one behind you. Go ahead.
So one thing that programming will give you is a better understanding of what's happening and why in the background.
Okay.
So if you find certain vulnerabilities, or you're looking for certain vulnerabilities, knowing why they occurred, or what, you know, common pitfalls that you know, a programmer might run across, you know, will help you understand this. So things like SQL injection, also finding out why that is in the background. Programming will definitely help.
So just for our folks at home, what was said was programming will give you a good background of understanding why a vulnerability exists. That's really the quickest way I can sum up what he said there. And I have a number of people raising their hand. So hang on. Is this related to what he just said? Okay, we got two people. You first.
I think, like, going back to how do you get into InfoSec?
Okay, going back to how you get into. Actually, I'm gonna give you the mic. Okay, he's got it. Cool.
Sorry. So just like getting back into info, how you get into InfoSec in the first place, you can kind of get in from anywhere. You can start without any programming skills at all, but you'll really advance your career by getting those skills. So you may start without knowing anything, but by learning PowerShell, you'll be able to advance in your position, or learning Bash, you'll be able to do better and advance in your position.
You want to get that back? I think she's okay. So we did have another question right here. So go ahead.
Well, actually, this might be a question for you. Like, well, in offensive security, you guys develop tools for the rec team together with other stuff, right?
Yeah, well, we don't really do tools exactly. It's training.
Oh, I see. Because well, okay, I'm gonna just throw the question. The question is like if there is any preferred language, programming language, or technology stack, like to code security stuff. I know, well, normally Python is a big player, but is a solid Python, or is it more like I don't know, anything else?
That's a good question. I think from what I've seen, it's whatever's readable, and that can be shared. So Python is a easy one because a lot of people can kind of understand it by just looking at the code. But yeah, Bash scripts, Python, Golang, C#, yeah. It all depends on what you're trying to do, what level you have to do it at. Yeah, so I don't think there's any one programming language that's the top.
C#,
yeah.
And C# is being used a lot by pen testers, making custom exploits and things like that. Because they'll use that to call local libraries, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Any other questions?
All right, so we're at our time now, and I definitely appreciate all the input from you folks, and I really appreciate you guys showing up. Hopefully you took at least a little something out of here. I do want to thank our sponsors again from TEKsystems for providing the food, and hopefully we'll see them again next month, maybe. Okay, good. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for coming. If you want, don't be afraid to talk to the folks from TEKsystems. Don't be afraid to talk to us. We'll be around here for another little while, but we're going to end our stream now. And what's that?
Join our Slack.
Join our Slack. Yes, please. That's where most of these conversations happen. There's definitely a lot of fruitful things to be gained from being on our Slack instance. So go to mysec.us, click the join Slack, and you'll get an invite, and you can start chatting with us. It'd be great. Thank you, guys.